Namaste everyone. My name is Saee Vaze and I'm from University of Hyderabad. And my topic of today is intersentential discourse relations. Next slide, please. So this is the broad overview of my presentation. We will start with the introduction of discourse analysis. We will briefly see what all work has been done earlier. We will then move on to the elementary units, the units in between which we are marking the relation, and the essential factors which drive or has a clue of that particular relations. Then we will look at the comprehensive list of all the discourse relations and how to present them, the implementation and challenges. We will look at one case study for the case of disambiguation, and we'll end the presentation by conclusion and future directions. Next slide, please. So we all know that discourse is a very broad term which can particularly used for a language phenomena that goes beyond a sentence. It may include intralinguistic factors such as context or genre, and also outer linguistic factors such as context or situationality, etc. For this study, we are focusing on intersentential relations. That is the relation that exhibit between two consecutive sentences, and we are trying to make a computer processable model to analyze and graphically show these relations. So theoretically speaking, there is a lot of work has been done on the discourse and Sanskrit, and a comprehensive list of that we would find in the Sanskrit syntax by Schaff and Hawk. The computational thinking was started by the work on cohesion by Halliday and Hassan. And we all know that RST and PDTB are very famous models uh, for showing the discourse relations between various languages, and that RST and PDTB model is also, along with obviously English, it was demonstrated on various languages, not only foreign but Indian, such as Hindi, Tamil, Bangla, etc. In case of Sanskrit, there is not much work has been done on the same field. The earlier effort was started by Kulkarni and Das, along with few representational efforts on discourse relations. They tried to build an FST for Mahabhashya, where the text cohesion was handled, and then Tedalkar and Bhattacharya worked on a question-answer system. Next slide, please. So the first thought we had was to apply PDTB or RST to Sanskrit language, as were done for many other languages. But instead, we choose to build an indigenous approach because of mainly three reasons. Because of our rich knowledge systems already available in the domain of Sanskrit. The first reason was because of the different theories on Shabda. So Mimamsa, Nyaya and Vyakarana, all of them are they very well discuss the theories of Shabda Bodha in their own perspective, and all of them deals with the coherence in their own style. Then there is a rich commentary traditions. The Bhashya or Tika already has some hints of coherence. From that we can guess the relation between two texts or two sentences. And there are three essential factors for verbal cognition: Akanksha, Yogyata and Sannidhi. These three factors were already in use to modify the to represent the dependency relation. We have extended that point. We will be seeing in detail in next few slides. So the basis of this work was led by Ramakrishna Macharyulu in 2009 and Kulkarni Das in 2012. They listed out few intersentential relations with in using the indeclinables as connectives. So we can see these two figures in so sentence 1 and sentence 2 are our two entities, and connector 1 and 2 uh, connect these two sentences. And the generic terms such as anuyogika means having a counter combining, and pratyogi means having a counterpart. So these generic terms were used for that, and the relation R shows a relation between connector 1 and 2. So there was a fluidity between so connector 1 and 2 are basically paired markers, but it was an option to omit one of them. In that case, the figure 2 would collapse to figure 1, which only has one connector. So the limitation of this stage of this work was there were only limited set of markers being discussed, and because of the generic terms, the semantic categorization was very vague, and it needed to be more specific. So next slide, please. So that's why we took up this work. So let us first discuss in which units, or what are our units in which we are marking the relation. So basically we are marking the relation between two sentences, and to decide what sentence is, we have used a Kartyayan's definition, ekating vakyam, where ting refers to a finite verb form. A sentence is a unit where there is only one and one finite verb forms. So, in the syntax, Sanskrit syntax by Spicer, he had listed few infinite forms who function as finite verb forms, such as tak, tavatu, pratyay, or kritya suffixes such as aniyar, etc. So that we have included in the our list of finite verb forms. That much only we have included. We can see one example. There are three sentences here which are marked by square brackets. First one is tvam ichhasi, where the finite verb form is ichhasi. Then aham tava gruhe agachami, where the finite form is agachami, and ramaha shamam vadati, where the finite form is vadati. So between first two sentences, yadi and tarhi are two paired markers which connect these two sentences, and iti is the karma dyotaka, sentential object representation. So these are three sentences between which we are focusing on first two sentences, as the yadi and tarhi being the discourse markers. Next slide, please. So let us now move on to the clues, or the three factors that essentially drive us, or that essentially decide the relation between two sentences. The primary factor being akanksha. Now, akanksha means jnatum ichha, or the expectancy. We have already used this expectancy factor to decide the dependency relation within the sentence, but we found that this concept can be extended outside the boundary of a sentence. So we have used a few clues in which this akanksha can help us understand the relation between two sentences. The first one is obviously indeclinable, such as yadi tarhi yataha tataha. So रामः पठति तथापि परीक्षायाम् उत्तीर्णः न भवति. Now tathapi has a expectancy of another sentence, or the another indeclinable such as yadyapi. So the mutual expectancy establish the relationship between these two sentences. Second one is I'm sorry, the numbers are slightly off. The second one is relative position. The positioning of the three sentences such as Ramaha pratakale uttishtati snanam karoti dugdham pitva shalam gachati, because they are placed one after the other, the consequence shows that there must be a temporal relation between them. Third one is pronoun anaphora resolution, where saha refers to Rama, and thus the relationship between two sentences is established. And the fourth one is nature of verb. We have given an example. Naradam paripapracha Valmikihi narapungavam. And the second sentence is Shruyatam iti amantrya pradushtha vakyam abravit. So here the verb pariprapracha or asks. So asking has an expectancy for answer. So that expectancy is being satisfied with the verb abravit in coming sentences. Next slide, please. So these factors from Akanksha can be used to establish a relation. Similarly, yogyata means the compatibility of meaning. So it can refer to both linguistic and non-linguistic factors, and it plays a major role in disambiguation process. For example, let us take a example. The intersentential, that is a karak, intrasentential, that is a karaka relation, versus intersentential, that is a discourse relation. We will look at this point in further slides, so I will make a quick pass to it. Then Sannidhi, because we are dealing with the consecutive sentences, that factor has been taken care of. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes, so this is a comprehensive list of discourse relations and the corresponding markers. So, so far we have came across all these markers and we have segregated them into the relations. So succeeding or the anantara kalaha is the relation, and tataha, anantara and atha are the markers that can denote this relation. Similarly, simultaneity, collocation, similarity, cause and effect, possibility, hindrance in cause effect, antithesis, conjunction and disjunction. So these 10 relations we have identified so far. Next slide, please. So this is, for example, this is a representation which we are going with. So this is one example. Yada bharataha marge gacchati tada saha devalayam pashyati. So here are two sentences and we are marking the relation using the head word, which is a mukhya vishesha, which is a finite word, between gacchati and pashyati. So we are using a double arrow to distinguish intersentential relations from intrasentential relations, and the direction of the arrow does not show any dependency or subordination relation, but it in fact shows the arrow shows that the property which is described by the relation reside in that particular verb. So this way the relationship is marked, and the markers which mark the relations such as yada and tada, because they have constant expectancy for each other, they are joined with dotted line and named nitya sambandha. So this is one example for which how we are representing all the relations for the all 10 relations and all the markers. The representation will be same. In case any of the marker is absent, then the nitya sambandha relation won't be there, but the discourse pattern of relation will be constant. Next slide, please. So we implemented 700 shlokas from Bhagavad Gita. All these relations were marked manually. The sentence boundary was also marked manually, and the shloka and sentence has many to many. So one shloka can have multiple sentences, or one sentence can be found across many shlokas. So we extracted all the discourse markers in the Bhagavad Gita, and then we unambiguous markers such as Yadyapi and Tathapi, which only have one meaning associated with it, they were automatically marked by machine. In case of ambiguous markers, we found there were two types of ambiguity. First is because of pronoun and the suffix. For example, yena tena or yasmat tasmat. So because of the tritiya or panchami, they can either mark a karaka relation such as apadana in case of yasmat tasmat and karana in case of yena tena, or they can mark like discourse marker or non-karaka relation such as hetuhu or karya karana in this case. So the second time is it due to the polysemy or the multiple dictionary meanings such as he and atha. We will be seeing the case of he in further slides, so I will make that a quick pass. Then this is a sample list for what we did is we extracted all the markers and relationship or the meaning associated with it, and how many occurrences are there in the Bhagavad Gita. So this is a sample list. We have the whole list in our paper. So for example, tataha is the marker, and it can mark 3 different relations such as karya, karana, apadana, and anantara kalaha. And the frequency distribution is quite similar. And the markers tada and tatra only represent one relationship respectively, samana kalaha and samanadhikarana, and they have 12 and 13 occurrences each. Next slide, please. So let us look at the case of he, where we worked on the disambiguation of the of the marker he. So there are 3 relations, 4 relations as per the Sanskrit Hindi Aptes dictionary, and 3 relations with Sanskrit English dictionary of Monier Williams. And Spicer lists out 2 relations where he say that he was an earlier, he was considered as emphatic marker, which is a weak, similar to weak indeed, but generally he is marked as a causal particle. And Nagesha categorically says that he is a Karana Dyotakaha. So from all the list, we for the process of disambiguation, for the process of processing, we extracted 2 primary senses. One is Karya Karanam and Sambandha. So all the other non-Karaka relation which is associated with single word, we have given them a single tag such as Sambandha. Next slide, please. So we build a heuristic algorithm based on 2 main things. First is the position of the marker he. So if it is found on the second or third position in a sentence, then it would be marked as Karya Karana. And if it is surrounded by pronouns and other markers such as eva, yadi, etc., then it would be marked as Sambandha, no matter at what place it occurs. So in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, we found 49 instances of Karya Karana. This is one example. Sankaraha narakayaiva kulagnanam kulasya cha patanti pitaraha yesham lupta pindo daka kriyaha. So patanti, and if we insert Sankaraha narakaya asti, then he would establish a Karya Karan relationship between patanti and asti. And 17 instances were found of Sambandha. For example, aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhureva cha. So aham he emphasizes on the pronoun aham. So 2 annotators manually and independently marked these sentences. There were total 66 occurrences. We marked them manually along with the machine. And our gold standard was Shankara Bhashya on Bhagavad Gita, because in Bhashya, Shankaracharya categorically explains he as Yasmat. Yasmat is the another Karana marker. So he categorically says he Yasmat. So that we considered that Shankar Bhashya as a gold data. So we can see that machine really outperforms 2 annotators and shows very good agreement score. Next slide, please. So this is an initial effort by us to use 3 factors, Akanksha, Yogyata and Sannidhi, and make an indigenous effort towards establishing relationship between 2 sentences. Currently, we are using explicit markers as relations to establish between 2 consecutive sentences. The next step of ours would be for anaphora, and where we will be focusing on correlative pronouns such as yaha, saha, etc. And then we will look at the disambiguation by modeling yogyata, and we will also focus on verb-specific expectancies. Next slide. Thank you. Any questions and suggestions are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Saee.
Yes.
May I audible? That was a nice presentation. Now the floor is open for Q&A.
Thank you, Saee,
Yes.
for the presentation. I have one query. In the case of yada tada, you showed this as a nitya sambandha.
Yes.
Yes, when there is explicitly mentioned, that is fine. But we have some instances where yada is only mentioned, tada is not mentioned at all. And where there is yada, tada, expectancy of tada is there. But
Yes.
where the tada is used in a completely different sense also.
Correct.
So both are being, I mean, all these cases have been considered while developing.
Not right now, as we are saying that right now we are only dealing, right, the work has been done on the cases where both the markers are present explicitly. Our next step is to find out, because there is no way to establish nitya sambandha with which we are proceeding to establish a relationship between two sentences. So that is our next step to identify that, because yada has an expectancy for tada but not in the similar case. So that is our next step.
And one more query I have. The he, which you are
Yes.
taken as an example, that he is used also as just Chando Purana. Chabai
Yes,
to he,
yes,
chabai to he.
yes.
Without any proper meaning also it is used.
Yes.
So will you add that particular aspect also?
Yes. See,
Because
he has.
yesterday I created a sloka. Because of the Chando thing, I
Correct.
had to include
Correct.
he there.
But in when you are describing or graphically represent, you cannot make any node be hanging. So it must be joined to. Yes, ma'am.
So right now we have considered only uh, two meanings of he. The first one is karya karana, and there are many other meanings. One is the emphatic marker and pada purana, as you said. So to decide whether it is pada purana or not, whether it is emphatic or not, we still do not have any clues. So we just mark it as sambandha. We do not disambiguate it. And that is, once we find some clues, we can implement them. But as of now, we do not have any clues as such.
So we have used an umbrella term as sambandha for all the other relations except karya karana.
Right. So one important thing that I see is that because of this yada tada and you're using these double-edged arrows.
Yes.
Now, therefore, the whole parts no longer remains a tree. It is not a tree any farther,
It's
right?
a graph.
It is a graph. So basically, dependency parts trees are useful than graphs in some of the processing. So I was just wondering, maybe there is no solution, but is there a way to make it as a tree by probably using some other extra sentential information and connecting both yada and tada as to that, so that whole structure is more canonical, more tree-like?
Well, in the case of sentences, I understand there is a dependency tree. But in the case of uh, discourse analysis, you cannot say this is mukhya visheshya. Okay? And therefore, we are not going for that. We are just showing how the various sentences are related. We do not claim that this is the mukhya visheshya. Of course, in the case of karya karana, which one is karya and which is karana, that is shown. But among them, which is a mukhya visheshya, that is not shown. That mukhya visheshya will be a kind of tatparya, and that tatparya nirnaya, today we are going to listen more about it from Professor Kutumba Shastriji.
Thank you, Saee.
Yes.
I have a very naive question. This relative correlative pronouns, these kind of constructions, are we taking them as part of discourse, or are we taking them as part of sentence? If we are taking them as part of discourse, then is there any reference from the Indian grammatical tradition literature? Which will...
May I? Okay. So, see, what we earlier said, that the unit of the relation is sentence. Okay. So, yada and tada occurs in two different sentences because it corresponds to two different finite verbs. That's why we have named them under the term discourse, because it goes beyond the boundary of sentence. that was our idea.
So I have a further question on this. Like if I take example from Hindi because so Ram jo mera bhai hai kal aaya. Now if I break this into sentences, Ram kal aaya and jo if it is a sentence then I cannot have jo there. I have to make it wah kal aaya. Now I feel like there is an information loss by changing jo with wah because jo being a relative pronoun is bringing certain more information than waha. So,
Ma'am, these are two different factors. So, jo, waha would come under the anaphora resolutions which we are yet
yeah,
to work
even
on.
jab tab,
Haan,
even
jab
jab
tab,
also you have to
yes.
resolve what
Yes,
is jab.
correct. Yes. So,
See, in the case of jab, tab, or yada, tada, actually there are two finite verbs. In the case of jo, kal, vah, aaya tha, there are also two finite verbs. Now, how to split them in two and what are the connectives? Let me first talk about the yada, tada part because that is comparatively easier. In the case of yada, tada, you have yada and tada as the discourse markers and you have two sentences. So we analyze these two sentences separately, and yada and tada will join these two, showing the discourse relation.
So you are saying that their discourse connective,
Hmm.
I mean that is there in the literature. They have been treated as discourse markers.
See, in the Sanskrit literature, there is no term such as discourse marker. Okay. But what is there is how do we
Because in one
understand?
case it is a temporal co-reference and
Yes.
the other ways it is a personal co-reference. Like jo
right,
wo
right,
is a
right,
personal.
right. So, yeah. So what you are saying is both of these are parallel
I'm just thinking.
sentence, parallel constructions. Now I need to see how the Sanskrit deals with the relative pronouns. We have not, we worked earlier, but now we still are rephrasing these from the point of view of Akanksha, Yogyata, and Sannidhi. When we worked on it some 10 years ago, that time we didn't have this concept of Akanksha, Yogyata, Sannidhi, and we were looking at it purely from the computational point of view and what what the contemporary computational linguists were doing. So we had implemented something, but since I'm not happy with that kind of implementation, we are again revisiting it. And for yada tada, we could find this answer, but not for the relative pronouns yet. And in the case of yada tada, they are also relative pronouns. That da suffix is there, da pratyay is there, yat and tat, and to which these suffixes are added. But um, there we have clear cut boundaries of the sentences. Whereas in the case of the example which you have given in Hindi, I don't know how to translate it into Sanskrit and see the corresponding thing. So we may have to discuss these things later on. Right now, we do not have the solution for this. Out of the four various akankshas, we have looked at only two of them. The remaining two we still have to work on.
So, yeah, I have a few observations. You have mentioned that Akanksha is Jnatum Ichha. The desiderative form of the Jnatum Ichha is Jignasa. So, what is the rationale for you to say that Jnatum Ichha is Akanksha?
okay. So, when you what I meant was when you say a particular word as tat yadyapi saha pathati, then immediately comes to mind then what. So you wish to know that what happens next. So that makes the expectancy that reader wants to know there is some kind of uh, more knowledge is or more context is required in order to establish a relationship between two
So, I
sentences.
understood the point, but the thing is, why don't you take the definitions mentioned by logicians? Padasya padantar vyatirekha anvaya anubhavagatma akanksha.
Okay, sir.
That will serve the purpose, I believe,
Okay,
right?
sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are some things when it comes to the relations, you have enlisted some relations, right? Enumerated relations like samanadhikaranaha. It should be samanadhikaranam. Okay.
Okay, but the two verbs would be samanadhikaranaha, correct? The relation between them would be samanadhikaranam, but the two verbs would be samanadhikaranaha because both of the actions lies on the same platform, correct?
It should be samanadhikaranam only. Samanadhikaranaha is no, not. Samanadhikarana kalaha is, it's unit, but yeah. So that you have to take care of those things. We will discuss it later. Okay. So, okay. So thank you, Saee and Professor Amma Madam, for such a fantabulous presentation.